performers here today.
Yo, Feva. Can't say me never did a one then. Now this one going out to all of my UK crew. Well, you know, so them stylists respect you, you know. You know it's a Birmingham, I born and grow in a downtown Birmingham town. They not show ya. This one reaching out right across east, west, north, south. Going out to all my Birmingham youth and youth. All my Birmingham man and man, them all about the place. All my Birmingham women and my Birmingham ladies. Yeah, man. Signal for all of the Birmingham myself. Blam, blam, Mr. Birmingham, where we come from. Blam, blam, some way better than all of them, man. Blam, blam, Mr. Bond, that's in a bad land. Blam, blam, so we madder than all of them one. Blam, blam, Birmingham, where the I come from. Blam, blam, so we better than all of them, man. Blam, blam, so we bond, that's in a bad land. Blam, blam, so we madder than all of them one. Down to the Birmingham, we coming like Vietnam. It full of blue steel and ammunition. Jamaican, Indian and no Pakistan. Me say down to the Winds and Green, where you find the prison. Up a bit of quick and love injection come from. You coulda Android, you coulda come from Saddam, you coulda Burger, you coulda be a Johnson, you coulda Blue News, you coulda be a Villa.
Let's see what he has to say.
You describe yourself as a free speech extremist. Is that?
Well, I will accept the label. I'm happy to be called a free speech extremist, yeah.
So you think no censorship it should ever be in place and all speech should be entirely free? Is that your position?
Well, I mean, I would prefer it that way. And I think that, I mean, don't get me wrong, I agree there should be libel laws. I mean, especially the way the press is treating me at the moment, there should be libel laws. And I'm quite happy to say that... you know, if you're a person speaking before a crowd or something, and you're inciting the crowd to take action, then while normally I would say that any action that a person takes should be entirely on themselves.
Before your stupid social justice feminine bullshit, it didn't happen on this scale. You are responsible for perpetuating it. You have to wonder what kind of system is producing them. It is a fucking feminist system that's doing this.
Any action that a person takes should be entirely on themselves. When you've got a particular crowd dynamic, there can indeed be certain circumstances where incitement is something that probably shouldn't fall under free speech, but generally that's not something that happens. As a general rule, I would say that most speech should be free, especially if it's this offensive speech.
Especially offensive speech should be free.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely, because often it's the offensive speech that contains the sort of seeds of truth that we need to consider.
But you do accept that some speech should be restricted in some circumstances. You mentioned libel laws, so you think slander should be restricted. What about harassment, threats? Should they be restricted?
No, but that's exactly what I was saying. You know, there are certain times and places where things can be considered beyond the actual responsibility of the individual. But yeah, death threats, things like this, yeah, they don't fall under free speech because free speech is a political concept.
Offensive speech should be protected, and do you think humour justifies? So say for example, someone makes a death threat, but they say afterwards, "I didn't mean it. I was only joking." Is that free speech?
I think it would really depend on the context. I mean, if it was obviously a joke, then I think people watching that would be able to obviously judge that as a joke. But if it was, you know, someone saying, look, I'm going to kill you, haha, just kidding, I think we can make a reasonable distinction there.
Surely it's hard to distinguish between good-natured humour, banter, jokes, and verbal abuse that...
Well, I don't think that necessarily verbal abuse is something that can easily be distinguished either. And I'm not sure that that should be criminalised either. I mean... I
assume you'd agree with criminalising, I don't know, say, for example, a parent who tells their child, you're stupid, you're ugly every day, that'd be verbal abuse.
I agree, that would be abuse, yeah. But there's a particular power dynamic in that relationship as a parent and child. You know, like if it was a boss, you know, if a boss came around and demeaned you every day, of course that would be absolutely wrong.
So it depends on context, it depends on power.
Of course, of course. All of these things always do.
So I'd like to bring that on to the specific statement you made about Jess Phillips.
Well, it's interesting that you bring up. What's the power dynamic there? Am I punching up or punching down?
What's the power dynamic of a man talking about raping a woman?
Well, what about a citizen talking to an MP? What's the power dynamic there?
a citizen who's running for a
I wasn't at the time,
MEP
was I?
position.
I wasn't at the time.
No,
so
but you
I
are
was just-
now, and you're still standing by the comment.
Well, absolutely. I'm not going to take back something that happened in the past. The past
not?
because you can't change the past. The
So
past is
if,
gone
if
and
someone does something wrong in the past, they shouldn't apologise, regret, make amends.
Well, I
shouldn't be
didn't say they shouldn't
accountable for
regret it.
their actions.
Well,
I mean,
how-
as a
what-
liberal
how should I be
individual
accountable?
responsibility.
Yeah, but how should I be accountable for
I
that?
think, well, personally, I think the decent thing to do would be to apologise, especially if you want to make, a stand on some legitimate platform. If you want people to respect you for your convictions, I think, I think a reasonable person would apologise for a comment like that.
The problem is, I know that Jess Phillips isn't looking for an apology. She actually said that she wasn't bothered by this. So
It's one thing for someone to say they're not bothered, for a strong person to say, well, I can take that. But obviously that has an effect, and not just on her personally. She's the little sister of one of my best friends.
Okay.
So yeah, I knew her as a child.
I
I
tell
know
you
her family personally,
I tell
and
you
I'm
what.
not here to speak for her family.
No.
But I think that a reasonable, decent person should apologise for making a comment like that.
I think that a reasonable, decent person doesn't laugh at the idea of male suicide and then go out of her way to block debate on that. Why are you not holding her to account for actually blocking a debate on men's issues?
She doesn't have the power to veto Parliament from debating
She
an
did.
issue.
Order. Order. I call Philip Davis to move the motion.
Thank you very much. I beg to move that this House has considered the matter of male suicide and International Men's Day. And I would like to thank the colleagues across the House for supporting the holding of this debate, and also the Backbench Business Committee for finding time to hold the debate on International Men's Day itself.
To consider today the important issue of suicide, particularly male suicide, and to represent the Scottish National Party in this debate. I congratulate the Honourable Member for winning this important debate, but I must admit that I found many of his remarks unrelated to the title of the debate.
And this is International Men's Day. Now, I don't know why there are wry smiles passing between Philip Davis and Jess Phillips on this issue.
I think this will be the third year of the debate.
She doesn't have the power to veto Parliament from debating
She
an
did.
issue.
No,
she
she
sat on a
actually did.
committee where she disagreed
No,
with the
that's not-
proposal for
That's
a
not true.
Men's Rights Day debate. She was laughing at
hang
the
on,
idea
don't
of a
address
men's
them,
rights
address me,
debate.
right? No, listen, right?
Not,
listen.
not at men's suicide.
Listen, that's not true.
Because I've seen the video.
No, stop, please.
I'd invite everyone here to watch
Yeah.
the video. She's
I am-
laughing at the idea that men don't get an opportunity to raise men's issues on Parliament.
And so I thought that in the spirit of gender equality, it would only be right to have a debate to commemorate International Men's Day, which conveniently falls on Thursday the 19th of November, which is a date when you may or may not have some time to allocate, so it will be very fitting. Because, of course, not only do we have International Women's Day, we also have women and equality questions every month in the Chamber, which we don't have for men. So the opportunity for men to raise issues that are important to them is very limited. And just to give you a flavour, Mr. Chairman, of the type of things that may come up and which will be part of International Men's Day, I'm not entirely sure why it's so humorous, but to discuss issues such as men's shorter life expectancy, wider male health issues, many of which go unreported through embarrassment of men to sort of go along and talk about these things, the high suicide rate amongst men, the propensity for violence against men. There's many male victims of domestic violence, again, as something that goes very much unreported because of lots of embarrassment about it.
You have to excuse me for laughing, that the idea that men don't have the opportunity to ask questions in this place is a frankly laughable thing, as I say, as the only woman on this committee.
She's laughing at that idea. She's still laughing when he starts to list serious issues, and then she makes it very clear that she does care about those issues.
One could raise men's issues in any single one of the question sessions. So men's health, absolutely.
Hear, hear.
I absolutely care about men's issues.
She makes it very clear that she does care about those issues.
I'll leave that to
Okay. Then why is Jess Phillips and her quote-unquote sisterhood, as she details in her book, making moves in Parliament to block Philip Davies from being able to table these issues? She can say, well, men can debate these things all day, but if she actively blocks these debates, they can't.
I beg to move that this House has considered the matter of male suicide and International Men's Day. This will be the third year of the debate.
They can't.
You've also said there's a link between women's entry into politics and the decline of society. How taking that with... yes, it's on record online.
No, that's not true. You know, because men, as you say, men were the ones who were generally involved in politics, which is something different. Now women are also involved in politics, and frankly, society is declining.
You refute that statement that you never said it.
I'm sorry, that's not true.
So if you disagree with someone's political position, does that mean you have a right to make personal comments about whether or not you would choose to rape her?
I have a right to do that regardless.
You have a right to...
Right to say whatever I like to these people, regardless.
Pathetic playground humour. It's trying to be offensive, trying to be outrageous, simply for the sake of it. Trying to
it's not just
get
for the sake of
attention
it.
and
It's
spotlight.
not just for the sake of it. Instead of divining my thoughts, why didn't you ask why I did it?
Why did you do it?
Because it was the only way I could get them to acknowledge that there was principled opposition to what they were doing.
No one engaged with any principled opposition. They challenged you for the statement you made because of the nature of the statement.
I had to do something that would get them to react and recognize that there was someone on the other side of the issue.
So when you say I wouldn't do something, you're generally talking about stuff that you have the capacity to do. For example, I wouldn't jump off a bridge. I wouldn't shake Sargon's hand. I wouldn't punch Sargon in the face. These are all things that I could do, but I choose not to do. When you say I wouldn't, you say I could, but I'm not going to. That's why it's a veiled threat.
Yeah, correct.
By saying I could, but I'm not going to, that is a veiled threat.
No, I don't think that's true.
You emphasising the power that you have, that you believe you have to do that.
I don't think that's true. I don't think...
When you say I wouldn't, you say I could, but I'm not going to. That's why it's a veiled threat.
Yeah, correct.
By saying I could, but I'm not going to, that is a veiled threat.
No, I don't think that's true.
That's why it's a veiled threat.
Yeah, correct.
That is a veiled threat.
No, I don't think that's true. Yeah, correct. I don't think that's true. I don't think that you could say that for anything. You could say that for absolutely anything. That's a statement so broad. I think it's ridiculous. Like I wouldn't pay my taxes. It's not a threat to pay my taxes, even if I had the potential to pay my taxes. It's not a threat to pay my taxes.
It acknowledges that you are in a position to pay your taxes. You know, if you couldn't pay your taxes, you would say, I can't pay my taxes, I've got no money left.
I agree, but
I'm not getting enough donations off my followers to pay my taxes.
I agree, but it's also not a statement that I'm about to pay my taxes.
It's not, and I'm not saying that you're about to do that, but I'm saying that you did make a veiled threat, and I think you just acknowledged that.
I don't think that's a veiled threat. No, I think that's not.
That's why it's a veiled threat.
Yeah, correct. I spent a lot of time... thinking about the language used because I didn't want to send her a threat. I wanted to send her an insult.
You feel perhaps, hang on a sec, you feel perhaps that, the comment has the wit of Oscar Wilde and the genius of Machiavelli behind it, but it's playground humour, mate. It's what it is. I come here to talk to you. I'm not going to do anything to you, obviously. There's cameras, there's absolutely his minders here. I wouldn't even threaten you, Carl. I'm not here to do that. But, I have come here to ask you to apologise as a human being, to rise above, to be decent enough to apologise.
But I can apologise to you personally because you're clearly offended by this, and you've come here and you've had the decency to come and sit down and actually air your concerns with me. And if you're offended by it personally, I will apologise to you personally. If she wants to come and sit down with me, have a conversation, explain that she is, then I will personally apologise to her. But until that happens, and until I get an apology from her, I'm not going to be apologising first. I'm just being beaten down, aren't I?
It's like you're the one being beaten down. It's that's kind of like the Jussie Smollett of the alt-right, you know. I'm going to make a big fuss, everyone notice me, and then, I'm being attacked, I'm being persecuted.
They're saying that. They'll probably...
Who is saying that? journalists and like the
actual journalists. Like pull up an actual article.
Well, no,
tell me an actual article that said that.
There probably aren't any yet, but I bet you tomorrow or going on, there are articles about me, and some of them will say something like, I abused her, or she is somehow the victim.
Pause. Do you not understand the irony of we're talking about people labeling themselves as victims, and you are labeling yourself as victim of a crime that has not occurred?
No,
you're
am
talking about
victim.
articles that are being written by journalists and videos that are being made, but they have not been made yet. And then you're saying, just watch, they are going to be made.
Yeah, but that's because I've been down this road before.
Do you not see? Come on, you got to be able to see that. Why would you even concentrate on that if it has not occurred? I mean, isn't this sort of like a black guy complaining about the man holding you back when there is no man holding you back?
No, I don't think it's analogous.
It is. You're talking about being a victim of a crime that hasn't occurred.
No, but I know what these people are like. I've been dealing with them for long enough now.
I know what those white people are like, man. I've been dealing with them my whole life.
Yeah, but we actually have a precedent for them doing this as well.
Right, but they're not doing it right now, and you're saying they are.
I had to do something that would get them to react and recognize that there was someone on the other side of the issue.
Was Enoch Powell right? Yes.
I'm just not in the mood to deal with this kind of disrespect. And I know it sounds like, oh my God, he's demanding respect. But yeah, to be honest with you, do you not think that, like, we should have a level of decorum in interpersonal interaction?
The short answer is how many stabbings make a river?
I just can't be bothered to deal with people who treat me like this. It's really annoying. Like, you are acting like a bunch of niggers, just so you know.
In this country, in 15 or 20 years' time, the black man will have the whip hand over the white man.
It's white working class men who are right at the very bottom.
Upper class twat. Dude, I'm not an upper class twat. I come from fucking the most working class roots. At least my parents do. But it's not like something I need to deal with if I don't want to have to deal with it.
I want to make video games and make history podcasts and just have a nice, quiet life. But I can't do that. I have to be involved. My conscience won't let me rest.
Jesus Christ. It's just like, you understand that I'm a person, don't you? You know, you guys understand that I am a person. And look, yeah, like, sorry, Nisa Keeson, how dare I hurt your sensitive feelings? Look, you carry on, but don't expect me to then have a debate with one of your faggots. Why would I bother? Like, why would I bother? You act like an upper-class type now. Maybe you're just acting like a nigger, mate. Have you considered that? Do you think white people act like this? White people are meant to be polite and respectful to one another?
There's been an awful lot of talk about whether I would or would not even rape Jess Phillips. I've been in a lot of trouble for my hardline stance of not even raping her. I suppose with enough pressure I might cave. But let's be honest, nobody's got that much beer.
And it's like, look, the internet is bullying me. I'm not saying you're bullying me. I'm saying there's just no point dealing with this kind of attitude.
Well, you can't possibly say that I'm punching down. I'm just a random guy on the internet. She's an elected MP. She actually has power. She has influence. I'm punching up in this regard. You know that.
You do have power. You do have influence.
Yeah, I know.
Obviously influenced, a hell of a lot of people to come out today. All your followers on YouTube, you have got influence. And I think you should take responsibility for the influence you have. The real reason that you won't apologise is because you know that if you did, you'd lose your platform. You'd lose respect of people who buy into your narrative, because I personally doubt that you have that much conviction. I would perceive you as a self-publicist who's trying to just be as outrageous and notorious as possible to get followers, to get views, because you like the attention. Because
I don't want to do this at all.
Well, why do it?
Because it has to be done. I don't need to lie. If she actively blocks these debates, they can't.
No, that's not true.
I don't need to lie.
No, that's not true.
I don't need to, dog whistle.
Was Enoch Powell right? Yes.
Yes. I'm not anyone else's man. I don't need to do any of that.
You know that a comment like that is a dog whistle to the minority of people who think that women should live in fear.
I don't think anyone thinks that, man.
You don't think anyone thinks that?
Well, are there any of these people here?
I'm not saying that about anyone here, of course, but some people do think rape is okay. Rapists.
I don't even think rapists think rape is okay.
Donald Trump
with the
comments.
Donald Trump thinks
he's
rape
recording,
is okay, man.
This is okay to sexual assault.
Come on, guys. Look, come on. on. We're here to... The chap is... No, come on. No, come on, man. Come on. Wait, come on, man. Mate, I know... No. Please stop. Right.
Free speech.
Yeah, exactly. A, it's his free speech to say that. But B, this gentleman has come down to discuss the issue with me, and he's been very polite and very respectful. And I would really appreciate if we could all be very polite and very respectful to him, even if we disagree, you know? I think that's very important because I am trying to foster dialogue here. So
I think you understand where I'm coming from, and I think that you won't back down on this issue because I think you are pandering to people who think it's hilarious and think it's great to say things like that.
I'm not backing down on this issue because the people asking for an apology are not asking in good faith. They're doing it as a power strategy in order to defeat me.
Okay.
Is there anything else?
No, I think that's about it. Thank you.
All right. Take care.
Thank you for coming down.